Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We've got a new update on Palantir's role in Germany, or the lack of role that they're having in Germany right now. So this I found out from Arnie when he first tweeted it. He said Palantir fails nationwide adoption in Germany. Fear of data protection, lack of legislation, and the price has all been a reason for why the clients in Germany that wanted to adopt them for their police force ended up not adopting it. This is an article from the German media. I translated it to English. Well, I didn't translate it, Google translated it. And so I want to read through it, discuss, and talk about kind of the dicey relationship Palantir has had in Germany, the implications for what this means in terms of the trajectory for the company to penetrate Europe, and overall what will happen in the future in terms of their international growth. So the article starts off by saying the nationwide introduction of the controversial police analysis software from the U.S. company Palantir is apparently off the table. Internal documents show that Hesse, North Rhine-Westphalia, I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, and Bavaria failed with a corresponding proposal. It should have been a big step, according to BR Information. 3 federal states submitted a resolution proposal at the Conference of Interior Ministers in mid-June in Berlin to use the police analysis software from the controversial U.S. company. The declared goal, to improve the analytical skills of the federal and state police authorities in order to combat serious and organized crime. So the idea was essentially to use big data, pattern recognition, etc., and stop crime from happening or be able to identify patterns in crime that were happening in order to prevent it for the future. But nothing came out of it. Internal documents showed that they failed with their advance. The driving force behind the proposal was apparently the Hessian Ministry of the Interior. In the run-up to the conference, an email was sent from the Ministry of Peter Buth, CDU, to representatives of 7 other union-led interior ministries. The aim was to put the nationwide introduction of the Palantir software on the conference agenda. An attached provisional proposal for resolution states that the use of Palantir software is absolutely necessary in order to immediately and noticeably improve the analysis capability of the federal and state police forces. So there were people in Germany that recognized the power of the software and the reason for why it should be adopted, and it was kind of like a no-brainer to them, but it didn't go through. A nationwide introduction of the software under the term Bundeswehr has been under discussion for some time in order to improve cooperation between the German police authorities. Bavaria concluded a framework agreement with Palantir in 2022, which all states and the federal government can access without a new tender. The U.S. company promises that the program will search several police databases at the same time and that cross-connections can be made visible in investigations, which is pretty much what Palantir has been doing in the law enforcement space for a long time. However, the Palantir software is highly controversial among data protectionists. Critics fear that the use of the software could violate data protection principles, and we're talking about Germany. Europe, GDPR. You cannot mess with data protection in Europe, which is why one of the bull cases for Palantir is that if we figure out Europe, if we crack Europe, if this NHS deal that I'll talk about in a little bit, we're able to get, we will have greater inroads to really be one of the only softwares in the entire continent that can create the technological capabilities that we're promising while also protecting civil liberties. And so I think that if we figure out Europe, it's going to be really good. But, if you can't figure it out in the meantime, it's just a hard thing to figure out because those German countries, European countries, do not care. Union countries also reject the proposed resolution. Hessen has been a Palantir software user since 2017. Now the Ministry of the Interior is apparently hoping to get approval for the proposal for the other union interior ministers. I think this is just like different municipalities in the police force, but that didn't happen. No joining Vera, said the group from Baden-Württemberg, also from Schleswig-Holstein. I actually went to Germany. I went to Stuttgart in 2016, so I should be getting these names a little bit better, but I'm not the best here. Only the interior ministries from North Rhine-Westphalia and Bavaria supported the proposal from Hesse in advance. So 2 ministries supported it out of 8, i.e. the countries that also already have ongoing contracts with Palantir. Makes sense. In the end, the proposal was not decided. The matter was discussed as the transcript of the decision of the Conference of Interior Ministries, which is available to BR Research. A few days after the conference, the Federal Ministry of the Interior sent Nancy Fraser, SPFD, a clear rejection of Palantir to the federal and state governments. The management of the ministry decided not to set up a platform operated by the federal government, and that although the project was apparently well advanced according to BR Information, on request, the ministry writes that the goal is now manufacturer-independent application provision. So they got close. I mean, you could see like they were almost 90% of the way through, especially because they were working with some ministries already, and it got rejected at the 12th hour. They were left at the altar. Hesse's Interior Minister Peter Buth senses an election campaign tactic by Fraser, who is running as the SPD's top candidate in the Hessian state elections. Now, this is very important to understand. They say it is very unfortunate that the Federal Interior Ministry of all people is denying her authorities the modern analysis tool for tactical reasons. He's quoting as saying in a major press release from his ministry. Buth's ministry does not mention that the majority of other federal states apparently do not want to use Palantir either. So one of the sort of reasons for why this was rejected in terms of its use was that someone is running for election, and that if you're running for election and that your candidate gets to say, oh, well, you approve this spy evil company that's going to be able to take all of our data and do all this tracking, and you're left trying to be like, no, that's not the case. It's actually good analysis. Obviously, from a perceptual basis, it's not going to look that well, right? And so I can't even blame someone who's running for election. I understand what they're trying to do. The problem is, it's not the best for Palantir. When asked by BR, several CDU-led interior ministries said that a contract with Palantir is currently out of the question for them. Schleswig-Holstein's interior ministry, for example, reports that no technical need has been identified that is served exclusively by software that Palantir could become. For Saxony, it says that there are currently no technical requirements that require the use of this software. I think that's not true. I think there's obviously many technical requirements. They likely just ideologically don't want to use it. The SPD-led interior ministries of the federal states are even moving away from the U.S. company Palantir. Hamburg's Interior Authority, which was originally interested in Palantir software itself, is now emphasizing the priority of European solutions for larger procurement projects in the security sector, meaning let's buy from European countries, not just Palantir. On behalf of the SPD department heads, one speaks out for a corresponding market analysis. And then the article kind of goes in and explains why they're demanding to use their own contracts. It is high time to decide on a joint solution that lies with their own sovereignty. There must be no mixing of sovereign activity with private data processing interests, and in this respect, it is the responsibility of politicians and authorities to find a solution quickly, meaning let's use European tools. Now, the problem here is there are no European tools that can actually get the job done at a sophisticated level. I mean, like, maybe they're out there, but when you think about any company, much less a European company that's probably not as big, probably not as advanced, probably doesn't have these many years of experience, probably doesn't have the battleground data sort of tested architecture that it's like worked in the past through many different situations. There's very few companies that are able to say they can do what Palantir has done or have the history of what Palantir has been able to do. So I understand the Germany police head's concern to procure European products. It's just a question of if they can't get the job done, what really matters, right? Like, either you get the job done or you don't get the job done. And if you don't get the job done, then people are going to be more unsafe, and then that's going to lead to worse outcomes versus giving some money to Palantir, which, by the way, yes, it's a U.S. company, but their foothold in Europe is very strong. And this is why, going back to the NHS contract, we got to get this deal. We got to get this NHS deal, because this NHS deal signals to the rest of Europe, hey, we're not messing around. We are managing 70 million people's healthcare in one country, which means if we do a good job, you give us a couple years and you see that things really are transformed. To me, it opens the floodgates for all these European countries to stop thinking that it is this, this evil spy company that's trying to take over your data, trying to exploit your data, because that's not what Palantir does. And the German police have got it wrong. That's what they think it does. Palantir doesn't give a crap about your data. They don't want to take that data. They don't want to monetize data. They're not Google. They're not Facebook. They're not trying to sell you ads. They're a tool to synthesize your data so that you can understand it. And they have built all the technical capabilities so that if you don't want to use it anymore, it's done. And they give you your data back. It's also like, what is the value of that data? Like, think about it. The German police force, all that data coming back to the United States, what are we going to do with that? Right? Like, are we going to sell them anything? Are we going to monetize it? Are we going to market it? No. Like, it is a tool that the institution, the enterprise, the government, the organization is able to use to understand their data at scale and to do it in a way that uses artificial intelligence or machine learning and actually get the most up-to-date insights that they can possibly get. It is not a tool that is, meant to monetize your data by selling people stuff. And like, this is the biggest, misconstruence of Palantir. Unfortunately, Germany feels the same. If we can get this NHS deal, I think it opens the floodgates for us to be able to show Europe, hey, like, there's a reason why people are using us. I mean, this whole Ukraine situation, there's a reason why Ukraine called on us, because these Germany contracts we should be getting. And that's why international growth in the government sector and the commercial sector has not been good. And I think it needs to get better. It's catering at like 10%. The only way for it to get better is if we get rid of this narrative. And, we probably should have seen this coming. This was published on February 17, 2023. Germany raises red flags about Palantir's big data dragnet. Court has issued limits on restrictions on how police can pull innocent bystanders into big data investigations. This was by Wired magazine. This is an investigation on how basically the German police are not that excited for this. Another one is by the Financial Times. German states rethink their reliance on Palantir technology. U.S. data groups seeking government contracts in Europe faces pushback over privacy concerns. And this was published in March 10th, 2023. So you had two articles by two big media sources basically warning, this is why the investigative journalism of these companies are actually not that bad. It's Financial Times is actually pretty good, of what's going on. And then you get this final article on June 30th that comes out that says, yeah, it's fully rejected. We're not using Palantir. Germany is officially moving away from it. So the writing was on the wall. We saw it coming. Unfortunately, you can't win them all, But this just goes to show the importance of getting this NHS contract and having a bigger role in Europe. I think it made sense by Palantir to be able to make their UK headquarters the new AI headquarters for their entire company, because that signals that they're trying to innovate and do R&D in Europe. I believe international growth is going to be a major pillar of their trajectory of growth over the next decade. Now, they, on the earnings call in Q1, the CFO, David Glazer, said, focus on U.S. commercial growth. That's what's going to drive GAAP profitability, and that's CAGRing at like 67%, which is amazing, phenomenal. I think commercial is obviously the real bull case for Palantir. But if we can get some of these governmental contracts, it's like, especially in Europe, if you solidify those, you are set up for the next couple of decades, because those countries are not, those departments are not going back to something after they use Palantir. I mean, they're just not leaving. And then you can upsell. I mean, there's just so much sticky revenue that comes from the government, which is why when we got $110 million from the Space Force 2 weeks ago, like the space, and those were sole source contracted. There's single source means there's multiple competitors and they pick a single source. Sole source means there's no competitors because there's only one platform that can actually do the bidding, can actually get the job done, which is why we automatically get the deal, because we're able to show that we know what we have to do. We're able to get the job done. And I think it would be the same in a lot of these European countries if we can just get our hands on some of those deals, like we got with the UK Ministry of Defense and hopefully with the NHS. Lithuania, we're expanding there. It's just a very interesting time to continue to grow out the overall business. So European growth, not the best. Hopefully that increases over the next couple of years. Main thing to focus on is U.S. commercial. But if U.S. commercial keeps CAGRing at 70%, we can get international growth, commercial and government, to CAGR at maybe like 18% versus 10%. That adds hundreds of millions of dollars down to top line revenue and eventually to GAAP profitability. It's the bottom line, which is going to be really important. So we missed out on Germany. Hopefully they come back, but we've got to do some work to get them back. Those are my thoughts. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Please subscribe to dailypalantir.com/subscribe. Free email newsletter every day. And let me know your thoughts on Palantir and Germany. See you guys in the next one.